Good day, everyone. Welcome back to Tales from Tech Support subreddit with silly stories about tech issue. Without further ado, let's get orgasm with rKush. Our first story today was posted by Magical DJ Gaming with the title, "Don't you guys have backup?" I worked for 2.5 years for a medium-large engineering business. We're talking 3,000 employees as a help desk tech. We had all the company's PCs running some backups onto some global servers as it should always be, but there is that one user. My phone rings. Me. "Hello, IT, how can I help?" The guy. "Hey, hello. My computer fried and I lost all the data that was on it." Me. "Okay, no problem, sir. Can you give me your first and last name so I can prepare you a new laptop?" Guy. "Sure thing." I gather all the info needed for the ticket and take back his fried computer. After a few hours, I check the backup server to get all of his data pulled out, but I see nothing for his account. I call him back to troubleshoot. Me. "Hey, it's IT again. So I have a problem. I don't see any data backed up for your account, sir. Do you have any idea why?" Guy. "What? So you are telling me that you don't do backup here?" Me. "Yes, sir, we do have a backup system, but I don't have any data on the server for you." "How is that even possible?" Me. "I don't know. Didn't you receive some emails from the server saying that your backups aren't running anymore?" Guy. "Are they automated mails?" Me. "Yep, sir." Guy. "I junk all those automated emails because you guys send too much of them." Me. Starting to see the problem coming. "Okay, so how often do you read your emails on your computer?" Guy. "Never. I never connect my computer to the internet. I only use it locally to do some paperwork and some printing with my USB printer." Me. "Well, sir, the backups are done via the internet, otherwise your computer cannot connect to the backup server." Guy. "Couldn't you have said that before?" Me. Getting annoyed. "Sir, this was explained in one of the first mail that you should have received from us." Guy. "Well, I didn't receive it then." Me. "It was sent from that automated address that you junked." Guys hangs out. TLDR. A user complained about the system not doing his backups, but he junked the IT email address and never read the backup warning and never connected his computer to the internet to let the software do its job. Guys, I was in a similar situation once before. My machine was running a little slow, so I disabled the backup agent manually every morning after booting up. So no backups for over 3 years, but lucky for me, the IT guy at work found out before my machine was replaced. Our next story of today's video was posted by Son of Supervisor. The department's new problem solver, if you have a few days, the time and lose a lot of money for it. I was hired as a problem solver in the technical department of a company which produces well-known commuters, coaches, and city buses, which are exported all over the world. I will have to solve the problems which the technician wouldn't solve themselves. To be tech support for the more difficult problems, so to say. Because of the extent of the knowledge I had to absorb, I first had to learn the ropes for about 4 years. A few years before, a guy from a complete other department had given the notice to leave for greener pastures. But when he realized the grass wasn't green at all, he came back begging for his old job. At this firm, if you jump ship, it is almost impossible to return, and his former department chief denied the rehire in his department. Although I had worked and learned there 2 years already, I still had a few years to go to be able to be the problem solver officially. This other guy who had worked at the firm before for about 10 years knew much of the theoretical stuff already, and my department chief gave him the job I was supposed to get. I was then offered a position as a department head of another department, but I did not accept this function and stayed on as a technician, doing the job I was doing for a few years already. So, the department now had a problem solver, and then there was a problem. A brand new city bus didn't start for its first time. The new problem solver was called and he ordered the technicians to check some stuff. All the wiring was checked, the software reloaded in the ECU and onboard computers, even replacing the computers, etc. Many hours work and still no joy. After a few days, a technician from the engine factory was brought in. Even then, the engine still wouldn't start. The city bus should have been at the next department days ago. What the problem solver did not do. When the other technicians and I were working on a bus and the engine wouldn't start, The first thing we do is connecting our laptop to the OBD plug in the bus, connecting to the engines and other computers, and see what the software is doing. This way, we could immediately see if all conditions are met to let the onboard computer start the engine when the start button is pushed. A city bus is continuously driven on the road or is parked on its firm's parking lot, and is driven by different drivers, so there's no need for an ignition key. Only a start push button is installed, but somewhere on the bus is a hidden switch that prevents an unauthorized person from starting the bus and driving away with it. If that hidden switch is not set in the correct position, the engine's computer knows not to start. We would have seen immediately that the hidden switch was somehow in the don't start state. So what happened was one wire was connected to the wrong pin of the toggle switch, so it worked the other way around. That was all. It had nothing to do with the engine itself. So all the time looking for the fault was a waste of time and money, and then they also waste the bill the engine supplier sent for the dispatching of their technician. I don't remember the total amount, but it was a lot. There were more instances something went wrong. The company made its bed by hiring this guy, so they had to lie in it. P.S. The way the department chief told me I wasn't getting the promised job. I have good news and bad news. Good news for the company and bad news for you. A man who left the company some years ago has again applied for his job here, but he isn't allowed to start at his precious department, but he can fill in your job immediately. I worked as a technician at this company for another 1.5 years until I had to stop working at all because of a medical problem. Working on those buses was a joy and I loved it, but it was made difficult by extreme mismanagement. Guys, if it was me, I would go straight to the boss and tell him something like this. Well, I got good news and bad news for you. Good for me that I get to sit back and laugh my butt off at your mistake. Bad news for the company that you hired someone incompetent to cost them so much over a simple fix. Our next story of today's video was posted by Low Budget Viking. Are you familiar with the word immunity, sir? Years ago, I became manager of tech support for a small startup with half dozen techs. I'd worked in support for a dozen years by then, and I always told them that my job was to advocate for both them and the company equally, and that by doing both, we get the best results. My boss was the owner of the company. He got excited about things quickly, but had the retention of a fruit fly. When he came up with ideas, stopping him was difficult, and more than once it became detrimental to the success of the company. At one point in time, he managed to wander into a Best Buy where the Microsoft Surface has just been released. He was smitten with them, and after a few days decided that everyone in the office should be using them. So began the rollout meeting where I first heard his intention of replacing my tech's desktops with 3 monitors and laptops with a single Surface Pro. I politely tried to steer him away from this idea, for at least tech support, by suggesting maybe a pilot program or a usability study, or anything really, would be a better idea. Undeterred, he kept things moving along, talking about licensing and timelines for adoptions. Whenever I was asked anything, my hesitation was noticeable and over and soon became an issue. What's your problem? Everyone else is on board with this. Why aren't you? I explained calmly that my techs required a significant amount of screen real estate to do things like work in SQL, do remote connections, interface with upper support tiers. So if I take away the computers and make them use Surface Pros, what are they going to do? At this point, it would have been more comical if his past whims hadn't been detrimental to us and the company, but it wasn't. He was dead serious. Are you familiar with the term immunity, sir? English wasn't his first language, but I think he finally understood what the results would be if he went through with this. I made a calm statement about what happens when you take away the tools techs needed to get their jobs done. I was asked to leave the meeting and I returned to my cubicle. Within a few days, the Surface Pros started to show up around the office. Everyone was enamored with the new shiny objects they'd been issued, while my techs never for a second considered that those would have been their fate had it not been for my advocacy. Over time, the Surface Pros eventually all died in one way or another. Broken screens, overheating, etc. If anyone knows anything about these, they were essentially unrepairable. The head of sales told his staff to keep important files on a USB stick in case theirs died, and when they needed a replacement, they could just get what they wanted at Best Buy, as long as it wasn't another Surface Pro. Guys, when it comes to tech, you find a lot of people just don't have a strong enough grasp on the topic to understand what they need, what they might want, or even what the possibilities are. Plenty of people were trying to do heavy workloads on $100 budget laptops. Others will want widely expensive machines for web browsing. When speccing out machines, I found the best approach is not to ask what hardware a person wants, but what exactly they need the machine to be able to do. OP's big boss guy was one of these types, just happened to be in a position of power and thought, oh, fancy new things can do everything. Moving on to the last story of today's video, posted by BamBam67, with the title, But It's Heavy. Let me set the scene. It's 2016, I'm the lone IT guy for a beer distributor. I've just upgraded our sales team from toughbooks to mini iPads. I found that OtterBox was the best case to keep the iPads protected. They were buggy, but so much better than the toughbook bricks they were carrying all day. I received a call from one of the salesmen, let's call him Matt, because that's his name. Me. IT, this is BamBam67. Matt. Hey, so my iPad screen is cracked. Me. Oh no, luckily I have a spare. If you can drop it off, I can get it repaired and get it back to you. Matt. I'll drop it off at lunch. How long will it take? Me. Once I have it, I drive it over to the repair shop and it's usually done by the next day. Matt. Sounds great, thanks. I found his iPad on my desk after lunch and I take it in, have it repaired, and deliver it back to Matt. Almost exactly 1 month later. Me. IT, can I help you? Matt. Hey, so I cracked my screen again. Me. Again? Oh man, you haven't had much luck with that thing. Drop it off and we do the repair again. I don't have any extra iPads right now, but I have a tough book you can use for the day. Matt. Oh, sounding disappointed. Me. What's wrong? Matt. Those tough books are so heavy. Me. Sorry, I don't have anything else available right now. Matt. Alright, I can handle it for a day. I came back from lunch and his iPad, this time without the case, is on my desk. Me. Hey Matt, I got your iPad. Where's the case? Matt. Oh, I was just trying to make it easier for you to repair and took it off for you. Me. I appreciate that, but next time I don't mind doing it just to be sure the case is on correctly or hasn't been damaged. Since this is your second cracked screen, I may need to contact OtterBox on how to better protect our iPads. Matt. Okay, no problem. Thanks for fixing it. I drive it into the repair shop, pick it up the next day, Matt picks it up, etc. 1 month later. Me. IT. Matt's supervisor. Hey, could you give Matt a call? He's having issues with his iPad. I just had to put in his latest order for him. Me. I'll call him right now. Me. Hey Matt, what's the trouble? Matt. I can't get into the internet, and I have another crack on my screen. I put some tape on it. It was cutting my finger. Me. Did you drop it? Matt. It fell off the counter at the client's grocery store. At this point, and you're probably tracking with me, I put 2 and 2 together and asked this question. Me. The iPad case should protect any small drops and it covers the screen. It shouldn't be cutting you. Did you take your case off? Matt. Yeah, with the case on, it's really heavy. Me. How long have you had it off? Matt. Since we got them. Me. Okay. Trying to hold back frustration and anger. Please drop it off and your case. I'll leave you a different iPad. It will have all your info, email, etc. This time, leave the case on. Those cases are expensive and they work well. I'll call your supervisor back and let him know your current status. Matt. Okay, sorry about that. I called his supervisor and told him the issue and that he's had a repair each month for the past 3 months. Oh, I talked to him. Sorry for the trouble. I left Matt an iPad with a battery that constantly needed charging, super glued the case together, and he had no more issues. When he called about the battery, I told him to charge it in between stops and said others had to do the same. They didn't. It was my passive-aggressive IT way of punishing him. Summary. Cracks/breaks iPad 3 times in 3 months. Took off the OtterBox case because it was too heavy. Repairs would have paid for brand new iPads. You know what? After the second time he broke his iPad, should have just given him a pad of paper and pencil so he can submit his order at the office on a desktop. This way, he wouldn't have wasted even a penny of the company's money. And that brings me to the end of our video today. Hope you reach your orgasm with rKush. Good day, everyone.